A wonderful Friday here for the Traction Lab weekly startup reality check. So, an Ask Me Anything with myself, and JDM will likely be hopping on shortly, but wanted to make sure we got rocking and rolling in a timely manner today. I'll buy a few seconds for him to hop in, but other than that, format as usual. We had some pre-submitted questions, so thank you to all of you that submitted those questions. We're looking forward to rocking with those. If you're hopping on live, we will prioritize the live questions. So please do let us know if you have questions as you're here. So we're excited to have you join us. Feel free to just drop them in the chat, and pumped to have you here. So hopping on in. So I'll warm up that chat here. So thanks everyone for joining. And please share what you are working on. Cool. So this is our first pre-submitted question. So in our pre-submission, there'll be a short pitch, the type of company, situation, and then kind of what their question is. So in this case, this is an AI scheduling agent that fills last-minute cancellations for independent dental practices. It's a vertical B2B SaaS, and they're targeting small, medium-sized businesses, so small, medium-sized independent dental practices. In terms of the situation or where they're at 22 discovery interviews, so great job in getting out there doing that discovery work. And every practice manager said empty chairs cost them thousands of dollars a month. The founder built the product and put 6 practices on a free 60-day beta. All 6 use it weekly. None have moved to a paid plan. The founder wants to open, the team here wants to open a pre-seed on the usage numbers. The question they have is 6 practices using their platform every week for 2 months. Is this enough evidence to raise, or do I need paid conversions first? So great questions. Great job in getting out there doing the discovery work. So that's always a core foundation out there. So love that particular work. But I think one of the big things that we talk about here is this like ladder of evidence. So we've got a lot of interest. We got some good quantifiable pain, that being the empty chairs are costing about $1,000 a month. And so there's opportunity for them to ultimately grow. And so one of the things we haven't quite measured is the actual intent or willingness to pay. So most of the evidence we have is that there's interest, there is some quantifiable pain, but we haven't yet figured out, are they willing to pay for solving that particular problem, and what that price point we would be coming into the market is, and ultimately what that return on investment for the customer would be. And so I want to bring in a few frameworks that we use here at the Traction Lab. The first is we haven't even kind of jumped into what we call the say-do gap. And so when we're looking at raising this pre-seed round, likely an investor is going to say, we'd love to see more traction. And you're like, well, we could get more users on the platform. But ultimately what they're trying to signal is potentially that they would like to see that true intent of a paying customer. And so have we put a sufficient offer in front of these 6 practices that have been showing high usage rates and particularly getting some value, but we haven't defined, or maybe I'm not sure if we've hit that 60-day mark and actually put a sufficient offer in front of them. So if we've hit the 60 days and then they haven't converted, that could be for a couple of reasons. One, you didn't actually ask them to pay, so you just kept the free trial going, or they didn't get sufficient value enough to actually pay for what you're ultimately offering. And so we want to understand if there's true intent to become a paying customer. And so I would say, yes, I would lean to figure that out, because one of the things we might learn is 2 of them become paying customers and the other 4 don't. Obviously, in an ideal situation, all 6 would be paying customers, but in the case that I've shared, at least we then understand who we want to target going forward. And so we don't have true clarity on who our customer is yet, because we don't actually have any paying customers. And so we can do a couple of things. So the first one that we recommend is called our team framework, TEAM. The T stands for time, meaning we're going to ask them for more time. So, they've been engaging in the platform, and maybe it's an ask for them to double down their usage or something of that sort. Effort is, maybe This is often earlier than them kind of going through a beta of sorts, but asking for some sort of effort. So maybe they have to upload a particular amount of data or integrate into their processes and workflow beforehand. And so you're asking them to do a bigger sized investment of time and effort beforehand. The A is for access. So are they willing to make connections to the ultimate economic buyer? If that's the case, or make referrals in that process. And then lastly is money, which in this case is the absent one from the example that's being shared. So I think we need to put a sufficient offer, particularly if we've already hit that 60-day marker. So that's where I would be targeting, but keep up the good work there. So awesome. All right. So we got one question down. Again, appreciate everyone being here. If you want to learn more about some of our frameworks that just ran through, so that being like our team framework as well as the Say Do Gap, we've written a number of traction thinking articles around it, as well as our Traction Lab podcast, which we've tackled this as well. In terms of our next question, so the next pre-submitted question, the pitch here, it's a monthly subscription recovery kit for postpartum parents through their first year. And so the type of company, it's a direct-to-consumer subscription e-commerce. Looks like Jay Doom is hopping on in. Yo, what's up, Shredder?
Yo, what's up? What's up? Just been fighting Mac as I tend to spend my days.
There you go. Are you gonna move away from Mac?
Oh, I mean, it's only a matter of time. Like I can't see myself buying another one. Like they fucking suck. They just suck. They just suck balls, and it's just terrible. And like the advantages for having it had to do with the app ecosystem, and that's shrinking all the time. And so I've had this machine for I don't know, maybe 4 years or something like that. And like the design choices that they make are absolutely ridiculous. And I get that there's a whole category of people who are like, oh, it just works. And it's like, it just works as long as you stay like within 1 degree of the way Mac wants you to do anything. But if you want any customization outside of that at all, everything will just break and the whole ecosystem will come crashing down, and it'll never tell you why. And there's a bunch of bugs that have been sitting in Mac for years on end that they just don't want to solve, because most people are just like, fuck it, I'm going to buy a Mac anyway. I don't care if it's a problem. I'll just buy a new machine. And that's not an ecosystem I want to spend my life in, man.
Fair enough. All right. So we are rocking. I took the first question that was pre-submitted, going, tried to warm up get a little heat going in the chat, but I think you've brought sufficient heat to the conversation here. So if you hop in our chicken scratch doc, there's a few pre-submitted questions that I copied into that. So maybe to hop in for you was on number 2, which is the pitch again for everyone was a monthly subscription recovery kit for postpartum parents through the first year. So Jay Dooms might have a better understanding of what that looks like. But it's a direct-to-consumer subscription e-commerce solution. And so the situation this founder shared was they have 900 people on the wait list. They converted them from Instagram content over the last 4 months. The launch produced 34 orders and 11 cancellations after month 1. So they actually reached out to those 900 waitlist users and got 34 orders and 11 cancellations after the first month. And the founder has hired a brand agency and is on the 3rd landing page redesign, convinced the messaging is the leak. So the question they have is the conversion rate, their conversion rate is under 4%. Do I keep iterating on the page and the brand, or is the problem somewhere else? So Jay Doom, since I tackled the first one, maybe you can hop in and share, are we on the right path just as Mac is for you, or how are we
Doing
feeling
about
about
as
this?
well as Mac is doing. Doing about as well as Mac is doing. All right, so there's a lot going on here, but the fundamental problem that you're encountering is not like, I can't tell you, oh, go tweak this or go tweak that, or is it the landing page or something else, because you've actually fundamentally gone down a path that was wrong. And so that path is trying to figure out how to scale, figuring out how to, do marketing before you've really figured out who the customer is. So you have a number of red flags. And so you didn't start in a strong place. You have 900 waitlist signups from Instagram content. I don't know what that is. Like, everybody puts their email address down for shit. Like, I don't know what they really want there. But then, like, you had 34 orders, 11 cancellations. Like, that's massive, right? That's a third of a churn in 1 month. Like, that's just terrible. And you're hiring a brand agency and you're doing landing page redesigns, which I don't know how that helps you with any of that. But at the end of the day, like, the conversion rate is under 4%. No, they are wrong. It is not a messaging problem. It's a customer problem, and you're probably not solving a problem that's sufficient for them. Or you're sending a postpartum kit. They signed up, they got the first box. Even if they loved it, they maybe didn't need it beyond month 1. And so you have this, year-long subscription service that they're never going to use, which means your customer acquisition cost is never going to be made up for. The payback period is going to be less than your retention. And then, or it could be that they got it and they didn't like it, and you only got 34 out of 900, which is not a great conversion rate off a wait list. If you're doing the math along with us there, that's just a couple of percent off the list. This is not amazing. And so, like, that you don't have the problem and the customer aligned yet, and that's not translating into a product. You cannot hire a marketing brand agency to do all of this work. You have to actually go way back to step 0 and figure out who the customer actually is. It's not all parents. All new parents, right? What kinds of them actually need this? What support aren't they getting from the usual channels they're going to get from this box? Is this box something that requires them to spend time? Does it involve some self-care? And if they don't feel like they have time for self-care, then they're not going to do it. So which are the parents that do have time for self-care? Etc. You got to think through all of those things, validate that with real conversations with customers, and then find people who are eager to say yes right away and will just throw money at you to try to solve this problem. And then as you're going through that, they're going to tell you what messaging is going to work. But until we get to that, like, repeatable pattern of, we know who they are, we know what problem they have, we know what message resonates with them, hiring a brand agency is the closest startup equivalent to a money bonfire. Like, you're just lighting money on fire, and you will never ever see a payoff from that. And it's a really common mistake, which is why I'm kind of like, revved up about it, because it's like, we came up with a great idea. Now we just need to find some people who know how to market and sell. And that is just fun. That's how you sell a sandwich. That's not how you sell an innovative new product. You have to get to problem customer fit, and then problem solution fit, and then product market fit. Until you can kind of do that in that order, and until you have that repeatable path to growth, you can't hire somebody to take over growth.
Awesome. I think the only thing I would maybe add is, maybe some next steps or an area that I would focus in on. So I would hone in a little bit. And again, it's not necessarily the only indicator, but, you had 34 orders, 11 of them canceled, again, high percentage. But understanding of those 23, if they did continue to, maintain the subscription, I'd be curious of how we would define them differently than the other group that has one canceled, but also the other 900 people. So defining who our customer is not, and then running some experiments around how we can get in front of those 23 with a sufficient offer to kind of see if they're actually solving their particular problem. So can we actually parse out who our customer isn't and who it is, and that takes some really diving into some of the patterns that we're seeing and trying to incorporate there.
Yeah, I do agree with that, but I would put a note of caution on that.
Yeah,
Is that
sure.
like they're not, they didn't say it in here either way, so this is why I want to call it out. But if they're 1 month in, then that analysis probably isn't worth their time, because they already had a third cancel after 1 month. Is another third going to cancel in another month? Like, we just don't know. And because but a third canceling, the other 2/3 just forgot to change the credit card or whatever. Like, they didn't go through and click the cancel button. And so, like, but if we're 6 months in, right? And
Right.
we just had a third cancel after the first, after the first month. And I was like, okay, well then great. Yeah. What makes those different? Because that's going to be that's interesting.
Right.
But if we're just 1 month in, I would try not to optimize this as a retention problem, because
For
I don't
sure.
think it's a, I don't think it's
Yeah.
a, I don't think
For
that's what it
sure.
is.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. All right. Let's see if there's anything in the live chat. So I tried to warm it up, bubbling some heat there. Let's some magma coming up. See if there's any questions. Not seeing any, so we'll continue on. We have just two more pre-submitted questions, so we'll dive into to those unless there is a another question that someone comes up live. So this next one, the kind of high level concept is it's a marketplace connecting independent film crews with short notice production gigs. The type of business, it's a two-sided marketplace for two different service groups. And the situation that they're tackling is 400 crew profiles, 12 producers, and 3 jobs posted in 90 days. The founder is running paid acquisition on the crew side because deeper supply should pull demand through. Producers who signed up have not posted, and when asked why, they said they already have people they call. The question they're rattling around with is, which side do I focus on and how do I tell the difference between a sign up and actual demand? So, JDM, I know you like to talk about liquidity. Maybe you want to kick us off with liquidity and some additional thoughts, and then I can add on top of that.
Yeah. So one thing I just want to challenge a little bit. They say deeper supply should pull demand through, and no, it won't. I just want to let me throw it out there. No, it won't. And then now we can return
Is that
to
is that the equivalent of build it and they will come? Just get supply and people will
right,
come.
exactly. Like if we've got products, somebody will buy it, man. Like that's it. I do agree that you do need to focus on having supply, because if you don't, and we call it side seeding, where you start with one side of the market, because if you don't, then the people who like if you're trying to get people who have like short notice like production needs, then by definition they're going to come to the site, and if they don't have somebody they can hire, they are gone, right? That's the definition. It was short notice. So you do have to have supply there, but this leads to how you set me up, Cameron, with like the liquidity conversation. Is that having supply doesn't matter. Having supply that the people looking for supply want is what matters. So all a platform like this ever does, a two-sided market, all it ever does is make a transaction more efficient that was already going to happen. So it's that focus on efficiency. So like the two parties want to transact with each other. They would transact with each other, but it's too inefficient for them to transact with each other. They have to find each other and do the whole thing. And so they don't. And the platform comes along and takes two people who already want to do business together and makes it efficient for them to do business together. That's literally all it does. So all a marketplace is supposed to do is to bring together people who want to do business together. And I know that sounds like really, really dumb and really lame, but it's like that's the important part. And what most founders and particularly in the like two-sided market or platform spaces is that they fill both sides, but they're ignoring that requirement that those sides have to already want to do business together. And so as you start to seed the supply side, we need to make sure that we're seeding it with people for whom we can get short-term production requirements for. Like we can get the people who need them. And if we can't do that, then we're never, it doesn't matter if we fill up both sides, we're never going to get a transaction to go through it. Everybody's going to leave. So like that's the liquidity part. Is like, can we, and there's a couple of metrics that you can look at, right? So like there's I'm blanking on the name at the moment, but we want to look at the time to transaction is essentially what it is, like a time to liquidity. And so like if somebody signs up, how long from when the time they sign up to the time they actually engage in their first transaction? That's a really important metric. And so, and it's going to look different for a supply side versus a demand side on a marketplace, obviously. Like if you go and list a product for sale on eBay, you can wait a week for it to sell. If you're going to buy, something on eBay, you're not going to wait a week for one to appear. So those two times are very different. So we have to have the liquidity right away. So the question becomes, who is it that has those short-term demands those short notice demands for production requirements. So like, who has that? Like, I need somebody today. What do they look like, and what are they looking for? And then can you seed the market with production companies that have capacity that look like that? And that's the thing to focus on. So it's not like when we say which side do I focus on, you have to focus on both because you need the liquidity. But if you're talking about order of operations, as soon as you have a good hypothesis of who those two things are, then you can focus on seeding the supply side a little bit in order to get the demand through. But I probably wouldn't even recommend that because I think you can much more easily do this manually. You don't need a platform to connect these two people together. So if you can find a list of companies, and you can find production companies, and you can find a list of people who need that short notice production work, then you can just connect them together through text message. Like, you can do that and just see if you can get some transactions going through, and you're going to learn who wants to do business together, and then you can put on the platform to again make that efficiency even lower, which is where you're going to actually be able to collect a percentage of that transaction across that, or a subscription fee, or however you do it. So like, I would even challenge the assumption that you need to even do this through the platform and focus on seeding one side of the platform. Everybody wants to because it's sexier, and like, I want to fill out the platform and get all these profiles, and everybody's impressed because they go on and see all these companies listed there. But you don't have to do that. That's not the thing that we're trying to prove. If there's demand, you can fill the marketplace. So first, prove that there's demand. That way you're filling the marketplace with the right people, and that the pricing is right, and everything else just kind of aligns together.
Yeah,
I know I left a lot on the table.
No, and I think that, I mean, one of the things too is you just understand what needs to go into that like connection. So like, what information do they need, and how do you like broker that connection efficiently? So I think going through that manual process is a key way to actually go about testing it. And so the line that I would probe into is this one right here. Producers who signed up have not posted yet, and when asked why, they say they already have people they call. And so I'm curious as to like, one, are they different than the other? They're obviously not the producers that posted, and so we only have a subset of producers who have posted. And I would be curious, if is that one producer who's posted 3 jobs, or three different producers who's posted those 3 particular jobs. And so ultimately what we're highlighting, though, by saying producers who've signed up and were asked, they already call people, so they already have a strong enough existing alternative that allows them to ultimately get there. And so one of the big things is we have to understand, like, how does this fit into their workflow? And this is partly changing how they're currently operating. So yes, it's urgent that they might need to fill this short notice job, but is it the new way of going about it? Is it that much more efficient to change how they're currently going through the process? And are they going to also then get the high quality that maybe they're looking for through their existing process? So one of the things we talk about of like changing workflows is you have to be 10x better than what they're already currently getting. And so for them to go through this process to then stand up a job in the platform, create a profile, all of those things, we're changing how they operate. And so sometimes that barrier is just bigger than the current process, even though it's maybe not as efficient, but it's not, your offering isn't sufficient enough in terms of time savings to go through all of that changed behavior.
Yeah, I love that you highlighted that. That's really valuable. And since you called out that line, I think the other part of it that I'd want to pull out too is like, producers who signed up have not posted, and they have like, how do I tell the difference between a sign up and actual demand? And so my question is like, why are they separate? Like, why is a producer signing up if they didn't want to post a job? And so like, there's either one of two possibilities, and my strong inclination, or my prior from pattern recognition tells me it's the second one. But either it is that they thought they were getting one thing, they signed up, realized it wasn't that, and didn't do anything. And so like, that could be for all the like literally just value prop misalignment or something like that. Or it could be like it even could be a subset, Cameron, of what you mentioned, that once they saw what they'd have to do in order to make it work, they were like, oh, fuck this, I'm out, right? So they could have done that,
Mm-hmm.
like could have been that too. But like, the people who sign up and never post, my inclination here is to believe that you are trying to get producers to sign up, and that your goal was to get producers to sign up. And as you're discovering, that's not the goal. The goal is to get producers to post jobs.
Right.
And so it doesn't do you any good to have a producer on the platform who's not posting jobs. And so like if you, as you're having conversations with the producers and you tell them like, hey, create your free account on here, they'll do that because the barrier is really low, the ask is really small, but they didn't actually have a need. And so you're building up this platform for all these people that don't really need it. And so like I would like make it a goal of yours to not onboard a single producer who doesn't have a job that they want to post right now. If you're trying to focus on just getting people on the platform because you're assuming once you get them on there the transaction will happen, then that's the folly that we were talking about before. That's the build it and they will come thing. Just because they create an account on the platform doesn't mean that they'll ever do a job. They probably won't because they didn't need to do one right then.
Yeah, I'm also just curious too. Like I'm not totally sure how the like transaction takes place in the sense of how the marketplace captures value back. So is this like where they're actually like hashing out the deal on the platform, and therefore you take a percentage of like a finder's fee, or is it who's paying you and paying you for what? Isn't totally clear, and maybe that's part of the friction as well because it's not clear like what and who is paying for the transaction at the end of the day. So that would be an area that I would hone in on. All right. Um, so we have time for our last question here, just seeing if there's any live questions. I'm not seeing any, so a little quiet out there on this Friday afternoon, but we'll head into our um, our question here. So the last one that was pre-submitted. So thanks again for those that do. All right, so the pitch is a sensor array that detects micro leaks in municipal water mains weeks before a rupture. So maybe we got to get them connected to 811 spotter here. They've mapped the underground world. In terms of the type of company, it's a deep tech hardware, public sector, and enterprise. The situation is two utilities have run unpaid pilots for 18 months. The field engineers are enthusiastic and use the dashboard daily. No procurement conversation has started at either utility. One asked for a custom firmware integration with their legacy SCADA system. I'm not sure exactly what that is. And the founder has scoped 4 months of engineering to build that. The question they have is these pilots have been running longer than most companies exist. Does that count as validation? And should I build the custom integration? So, Jay Dooms, how is that sitting with you in terms of this venture?
It does not count as validation. No.
Ooh. What does it
Um,
count as?
um, well, I think that it counts as a feasibility test. Like I think we did that. We validated that the thing works, at least to some degree, or at least that's what I'm reading between the lines here. And we've validated that that the field engineers will use it daily, at least some subset of them. But that's kind of it. Like we haven't validated anything demand, and that's because no procurement conversation has started at either utility. Why? Like you have two utilities running an unpaid pilot for 18 months with no with no procurement conversation. Was there never one? Was the people who are responsible for procurement or responsible for paying or whose budget this coming out of, were they ever part of the conversation? Or did this go straight to like the field agents and their bosses and they all implemented it and they're running with it every day, but the people who would have to pay for this have never been in the picture? That's kind of that's a dangerous place to be in, because now you have to start all over with the procurement conversation and see if you can get somebody to pay for something that they've been using for free for 18 months when you're not even sure that you can deliver them the value, the people who pay. Like I'm assuming you're delivering some value to the field engineers because they keep using it. Mm-hmm. But are we delivering any value to the people who, control the things? That's a whole other question there.
Yeah, so the term we often use is I think there's a lack of clarity on who the economic buyer is, in the sense of we haven't really gone through the process of trying to figure out a sale. So we might have positioned this pilot, or however, I can't remember the exact term they use. Yeah, unpaid pilot, as JDM mentioned, this like feasibility study. So it's like their investment in supporting you is giving you feedback and using the tool, but not setting it up as a desirability test. And so now we have the biggest risk is their willingness to pay, after we've spent 18 months. And so it's great that you're still quote unquote in business, even though you don't have any customers to date. So you're
You're
probably
still in
just spending
hobby.
more of your still alive in the sense of spending your own money on all of these things, or maybe OPM, other people's money, on it. But I think at some point you're obviously going to need to figure out the true desirability side. And so I would definitely, start putting a clock on how you're going to start to move to the desirability space. And if that conversation has never happened, that might be something you need to start like looking at, of how do we say, okay, we have X number of, maybe we give you another month of free, but at the end of this, we're going to, start having, not even start having conversations. This is when payment starts, or, just at least starting that conversation of what payment structure would ultimately look like. And I think one of the key things Josh brought into it was we're demonstrating value to the engineers, it seems. And so what is that value then translating to who the buyer is? If we do know that, we need to understand how we're like quantifying that pain and what that return on investment to them would look like, in terms of what this solution looks like. So overall, the last thing that we haven't really touched on is the custom build. And I think there's a lot of risk in going down this path of the custom build. Partly, one, we don't even know if they're willing to pay for what you've created thus far, let alone now trying to create something custom for them and understanding what they would pay. But the challenge with oftentimes going through this customized process is it doesn't allow us to be truly scalable going forward, because now the reason we got this customer was because we did this specialized thing for their system that then isn't applicable to the next municipality or the next county or whoever you're ultimately working with going forward. And so we run the risk of now being more of a consulting business with like a specialized product that we sell, versus truly that scalable venture that you're envisioning, or at least that's what has been positioned as. So I'd be curious of your thoughts, JDM, on some of the customization elements.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't customize anything for anybody who's not paying. They've also been using it for 18 months, so I don't know what additional value the custom integration actually gets them. So like, why have we gone 18 months with them using a daily without that being a thing, and now that's a thing? So I have a lot of questions around that we can't answer based on the length of the question. But I mean, the shorter answer is like, no, you shouldn't build anything for anybody for free. Like, we don't want to end up in the like consulting as a service, or software as consulting, or something like that trap, where instead of actually doing the software as a service, you end up doing consulting as a service, and then like you use the software behind the scenes, but you're not doing anything repeatable. So
Yep. Awesome. Well, I think that's we do have a few people live, so maybe JDM, if you have a quick filibuster, I'll try to throw some things in the chat here and get them warmed up. But
cool. Well, we a couple of shameless plugs. We do have the applications open for our investment readiness series. So if you want to dive in deep with Traction Lab on both getting much better fundraising based evidence for your startup to actually raise more money for your startup, as well as focusing on that repeatable engine of growth, and then compete for $100,000 in equity investment. You can do that through our investment readiness engine, and you can check that out at tractionlab.io. So we're taking applications now, but we will be closing that soon. So get your application in now if you want to be considered for that program. It is selective. We have a small number of spaces that we can take, and there's no cost to founders due to a generous grant from the city of Sacramento, and we don't take equity in the companies in that program. We also have our Traction Lab Venture School. So if you want to just focus on getting that repeatable path to growth, finding those early paying customers, and figuring out how to do that in a repeatable way that scales well, and maybe you're a technical founder and the business side of things isn't your shtick, then hit up that. So you can also go to tractionlab.io and hit that up as well. Super happy to have that going as well. So you can check that out. And there's a lot of opportunities for one-on-one support with the Traction Lab for that as well. And then lastly, there is the Startup Stack and Clean Starter running their Power Series, which is a series of little talks that they're doing on the fundamentals that every founder needs to know. And coming up next week is a little class on customer discovery, on discovering your customers, that Cameron and I will be guesting at. So if you want to come hang with us and ask some questions about customer discovery and learn how we do that in a science-based way at the Traction Lab, then come hang out with the Power Series there. Cameron's been dropping those links in the LinkedIn chat, but throw me a DM if you're on the YouTubes, and I'll get those to you as well, or leave a comment. I'm happy to throw those links at you. So that is the vamping that I've got there. What have I missed? We've got our high conviction happy hour.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
That's coming up in just a couple of weeks. So this is our quarterly Traction Lab event, one of our signature Traction Lab events. It's open to anybody who wants to come. You just have to register, and we'll approve you to register. But we basically take a couple of companies that are in the Traction Lab ecosystem, and we have them pitch what they're working on to what we call our Traction Lab readiness board. Review board, our Traction Lab review board. And the review board is not only myself and Cameron, but also some very trusted friends of the Traction Lab who have a lot of experience and actively write checks in the ecosystem here. But the point is not to give pitch feedback. We don't actually care about that at all. That's not on the table. What we actually want to do is expose the founders who are pitching, as well as everybody who's in the audience, to exactly how investors think about these things. How are they evaluating? What is their internal monologue? Where do they really see the risk, and actually help you get much better in your startup itself, which makes the pitch inherently better, as opposed to like, here's how you polish up that business model slide. So dive inside a founder's mind, learn how to be a high conviction founder. High conviction happy hour, super fun. You can come sit in the audience and hang with us. There's some socializing, a lot of awesome people there that you can do, and that's coming up, I think, on the 20th, 28th, maybe 27th. The 27th. So got it. In just under 3 weeks from today. So 3 weeks from yesterday.
Ooh. Let's go.
Let's go. Get it.
Awesome. Well, I think with that, I will maybe wrap us up here. So thanks, Jay Doom, for joining for another one of our weekly startup reality checks. So appreciate all the pre-submitted questions. It definitely keeps us going week to week. So we do appreciate that. Thank you for all of you that joined live and were lurking out there and learning from others, questions. But look forward to having your questions either pre-submitted or, asked live. So we always love the live questions and back and forth. So with that, there's obviously a lot going on in the ecosystem. So would love for you to join us at many of our Traction Lab offerings. And with that, we hope you have a great rest of your Friday and a good weekend. And we'll exit with bye.
Bye.